Well, hey, everybody. I want to take just a minute and talk with some friends this morning and invite you into that conversation. Mike White and Henry Trong, both men that have been in the church for a long time. When I think about generosity, both of your names come to mind. So I'd like to just kind of peel back the layers a little bit today and get a chance to dialogue about that. And I'd love to start with you, Mike. What is it about giving that actually causes you to come alive?
You know, I think everybody wants to be a giver. You know, we've all been blessed by God, and we think of all the things He's given us. When it comes to financial giving, though, there's a tension. We need the money. Jesus, on the other hand, says, don't worry about tomorrow. Yeah. And so that's kind of where the challenge is for us. I remember Will and I, it's been 30 years ago, literally. Our kids were small, and it was one of the very first times back then we called it Faith Harvest Offering. Yeah. And it was the first time we were kind of challenged with this thought about faith and giving in a significant way. And Will and I both felt like we should jump in. We didn't have much money in those days, but we had some margin. It was our first 5-figure check. Wow. And I mean, we were like, should we do this? And yeah, we should do this. And I remember having anxiety writing the check. My son was in his early teens. I brought him in. I said, hey, Taylor, look at this. Wow. Big eyes, you know. And that's your Christmas right there. And he said, that's cool. I said, we're giving your Christmas to Jesus. But for us, that was stepping on the water. Yeah. And we didn't sink. We paid our bills. Life went on. But we felt the pleasure of God, it's different than feeling the love of God. We felt the pleasure of God, and it was just such a rich thing, and it flipped a switch in us. And honestly, God has made it possible for us to do that many, many more times. And it always takes faith. You know, faith is really just being one step ahead of fear. And that's what we do, you know. Let's get one step ahead of this and do it. And, you know, if you didn't need God's help to do it, it doesn't really take any faith. Yeah, sure. But, you know, it's that's kind of been our story. But I think it's a story that everybody in our church would like to do, you know, and it's, you know, just having a sweaty palm that first time to write the big check, you know.
I would imagine the same for you too, Henry. Like watching you over the last few years has been really inspiring for me because I think you represent Next Chapter. You represent an emerging group of givers in the church that really do believe in sowing and pushing the next generation forward. Yeah. And I'd love to just hear about that from you. Maybe just share your heart in sowing and pushing next generation ministry forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me and my wife, I think we just love to see the church move forward.
Yeah.
And the next generation is the key to that next step.
Wow.
And if we don't sow into that, the future, like our middle school or high schoolers, young adults, colleges, young professionals, if we sow into that, there are future influencers, doctors, lawyers, teachers. And for me and my wife, we just feel like, you know what, that's one area we just want to see God move. And it takes money to move sometimes, right? We need money to do things. We need money for events and money for stuff. And so we feel a big heart to just pour into that, just to be like, hey, what do you guys need? Let's help you get to that next step. How do we grow this? How do we get more people to find Jesus? How do we get more people to know that? And, you know, these events that some of our groups do, I mean, to still into that, or like camps, right? For instance, like kids get impacted so much at camp, you know, and we just love to sponsor those kids because like we know that when I was growing up going to Manhouse Camp, like or Citadel Camp back in the day, is like one moment with God can change a whole life, right? That could be their trajectory. The future, it could be that next giver, it could be that next preacher, it could be the next business person, right? And so if we can sow that seed and see that seed develop, I mean that's game changer.
I just kind of stumbled across this statement recently that said giving writes a story that hasn't been penned yet. Ooh. When you're talking about making sure the kids go to camp. My son, just over a year ago, had just come back to the Lord, but was still just kind of wrestling with his faith. And our youth pastor invited him to go to camp, and he went. And in that worship service, he had an encounter with God. Man, I get teary-eyed every time I think about it, because I've got a picture on my phone. I go back and look at it. He actually came to me at dinner that night, and he said, "Dad, I felt like chains fell off of me tonight." And I don't know what he had collected in high school. I don't know the journey fully that he had been on, but I know camp changed his life. Yeah. And I think about not only his life, but now what will be his marriage, his family, his kids, like giving right stories. And sometimes you don't even know what those stories are, but they get written for eternity. And I think about, Mike, that's a real strength for you, is thinking eternally in your giving. Can you just talk about that for a minute?
I can. Yeah. I mean, it tracks back to, nobody listening to this is going to know the name of Brother Connor. But Brother Connor preached a message way, way back called Living Life in Light of the Judgment Seat of Christ.
Wow.
And the sermon's in the title.
Yeah.
That at some point we're going to stand before Jesus. And it's interesting. My mother-in-law got old, which I'm getting old. And she was at the point where she was her last days. And so she lived with us for, maybe 6 months. And, she's in a hospital bed. We've got a nurse that comes in and just all that stuff. And Willa said to me, we love doing it, but it was hard work, no doubt about it. She said, "Mike, do you think this will ever end?" And, I knew what she was saying. Well, a couple of weeks later, she passed away, and she looked at me and she said, "Wow, that went by quick." And I thought, I got a feeling that's exactly what we're going to be saying when we stand before Jesus. We're going to look back and say, "Wow, that went by quick." Mm-hmm. As you were talking, I was just kind of engaging what you were saying, and like with your son, Jesus said, don't store up treasure here, store it in eternity. He talks about, if I can't trust you with natural finances, how can I trust you with real wealth? Well, the real wealth is what you said, your son's story. 100%. We're going to spend eternity, I think, enjoying the fruit of the little things we did, the prayers we prayed, the times we put our arm around someone to encourage him, and every dollar that we gave to, we give dollars that go overseas. Right. We see none of it, but we're going to come back and it has a ripple effect. That generation will affect the next generation. And I think we'll spend literally eternity just being grateful and enriched by all the lives that were impacted by ours. But then I think also our eyes will be open, and we'll see all of the giving and the generosity and the faith that led to our salvations.
Man, that's so good. That's so good. Henry, I think about kind of where we're at as a church right now. This vision offering this year is going to push a lot of things forward. It's going to push evangelism forward. It's going to push discipleship forward. It's going to push community life forward. As we're kind of walking through Nehemiah right now, one of the interesting facts in Nehemiah is it said every family found their place on the wall. Like they worked on the wall close to where their house was. Like they found their place to build. Like I'd love to just hear you kind of speak to that. Like for the houses of Manna House, the people in Manna House, how could they, and what would you say to them about getting involved in vision offering this year in helping rebuild for the future?
Yeah. I mean, if I go back in time, Faith Harvest back in the day with Pastor Frank, I remember like me and Steph, I just got laid off. Wow. My job. And I was like, what, Thanksgiving time was when Faith Harvest started. So God just, I think, tested me, just like, hey, give it something big because watch me move.
Yeah.
And I think back, and I'm like, that it was like a 5-figure check. I was like, what am I doing? Like, I just got laid off. I have no money. What? And the crazy thing is, like, the moment I stepped out in faith to do that, like, ripple effects happened after, and just God's providence was just there. And I got a new job. I got bonus checks in the mail. It was just crazy. It was like, I don't understand what happened, but it took me to have that level of faith to step out. And so, like, with Faith Harvest, which is now our vision offering, similar, right? It's like, I mean, I would just encourage people just to step out, like, hear God, right? Obviously, be smart about it. You know your account, you know what you need, but also it takes a little faith to go beyond what you want to give, because when we go beyond what we give, there's something about that principle of reaping and sowing that God just pours back in. And it's just, I've seen it over and over again. I don't get it. I mean, I get it, but I don't get it because it inspires me. I just feel awe every time it happens. And it's just like, it's weird. Not weird, but like, but just weird, like in a sense of like, it's a principle God gave us. And if we can activate that, it's, again, the word is game changer, because if we can tap into that, because God wants to bless us, or he's here to bless us, but it takes us to step out in faith sometimes to see where we're at. Like, God, you know, in the Bible, God says, test me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why don't we ever do it?
That's a great question.
Try it. Why don't we do it? Are we that scared? Do we not believe God enough that we're like, hey, he's telling us to do it, so let's try it. See what happens. So in my life, I've had that over and over again. God's like, test me. I'm like, you should pick whatever. There's no way, right? But it takes that activation of faith to do that. And once that happens, it's like, I don't know, it's just God just comes back, like, blows my mind. So it's just, I think if we can just, in this time of our vision offering, like, if we can just focus on hearing God, what he's saying, and trusting him and believing and stepping out in faith, I think the returns are just the best returns you have out there. There's nothing more than that.
You know, it's interesting just thinking through what you just said. There's a truth there that if every single person in our church could capture, that money is like a seed, and there is this thing called divine kingdom economy. When you get involved in his work, like, his flow of resource starts to move, and how it works and why it works and all that, it's hard to wrap your mind around, but it's real. And I think the parallel is farming. You sow seed and you reap a crop. And there's fear around that, because people are afraid, oh, am I getting into some kind of prosperity doctrine that you're giving to get? I don't think the motive of a gifted giver or a faith-filled believer is give to get. But God does say, if you sow, you will reap. And Mike, what would you say to that?
I don't know if he's probably both of you have had somebody come up to you and say, you know, I've been a Christian a long time, but I've never seen like a bona fide miracle. If you think of an apple seed, and that seed turns into this tree, we're so familiar with it that we don't recognize it's a miracle right before our eyes. Wow. But everything God created, he created to be fruitful and to multiply. So that seed turns into a tree, which will produce 10,000 apples in its lifetime. Plus, you could take those seeds and make orchards. Well, we're his masterpiece of creation. He said, humans. And what was the very first words he spoke to mankind? Be fruitful, multiply. Well, it applies in every area of our life. Of course, have children, build cities, but also, and you know, I think you're almost referencing Jesus, and where it says, you know, if you give, it'll be given. Give and you shall receive. I mean, these are the words of Jesus. This isn't even Paul. We could say is second tier. It's red letters. But that same principle applies. And when he does it, he's actually talking about sowing. So it's a seed reference. So he gives us seed. We plant it. We invest it. We invest it in the kingdom. He tells us where to invest it. And we should expect a harvest. this is a big deal to us. Giving is a big deal. And I encourage my friends because I don't want them to get lost in the fact that, you can serve money or you can serve God. Let's make sure we're serving God with our money. But I've had a lot of people say, Mike, look, you're a gifted giver. We just don't feel like that's our calling. I've never said this. I've been so tempted to, but it would just be harsh. So I've never said it, but it's like saying, so you don't want to be a gifted receiver. Because
there you go.
It's Jesus prefaces it, give and then.
Yeah.
And so we all want to receive. And again, I know we all want to give. It's just, somehow we got to get through the mental roadblock in our mind that God is our provider, not our bank account.
It's interesting. He also said, I'll give seed to the sower.
Yeah.
Right? So no seed. I think everybody's got some seed in their hand.
Yeah.
Everybody does. And that's really kind of where we're at this year, is coming to the place where we ask ourselves the question, what seed do I have? What can I sow? And to your point, Henry, maybe the Lord would even challenge me to stretch a little further and to go a little further. We're in a season, we're calling a rebuild season. We're refreshing our vision. We're calling ourselves to attention. We're shaking off a spirit of poverty, any cloudiness that's hanging over our heads as a church. And we're saying we're going to rise and rebuild. And so really it's going to take every family. It's going to take every one of us to come together this year and say my part on the wall, for the sake of the generations, for the sake of the work that God wants to do in stories that haven't even been penned yet. And so I first want to thank you guys for being so faithful, but also inspiring all of us at Manna House. You guys are a great model of that. But my hope is that, in the generations to come, there's many, many more Mikes. There's many, many more Henrys who rise up and say, I'm going to advance Jesus movement. I'm going to sow into the generations. And so that's what we're going to do this year. We're getting ready. November 16th, we're all going to give. The 23rd, we'll have a follow-up Sunday, and we're going to push the work of God forward. So church, as you get ready for Vision Offering this year, let's be inspired by their faith, and let's give to advance the movement, Jesus.